So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, each of you, and your company, Big in Japan?
Great. Well, Big in Japan is a sole-purpose company. It's basically to build mobile applications. And our first major application, obviously, is GoCart, which we developed for Android. Rylan is basically the sole developer on the code that exists today. We basically formed Big in Japan to move forward with GoCart as an application. Jason joined us as co-founder, myself as co-founder as well. So the three of us are co-founders of the new business, Big in Japan.
Mm-hmm. How did you guys come up with the name Big in Japan?
You know, Big in Japan was a name that we used as a placeholder, where we didn't have a name for it. We didn't know necessarily what we wanted to use, so it was almost like a joke. What would be cool on a T-shirt? So, and every time we say we're big in Japan, everyone's like thinks it's funny. So, you know.
How did the team come up with the concept and idea of GoCart?
Well, Rylan can probably best answer that. How'd you come up with the idea?
Of GoCart?
Yeah.
Well, it started out back in college when I had to pay for textbooks, and it made me mad how expensive they were. So, I came up with a way to trade them with other students, and figured I could do that with products beyond just textbooks. And then that idea later evolved into doing the same thing on a cell phone. And the idea has kind of been cooking for a while, but wasn't quite ready for the market yet until phones like Android and the iPhone started coming on the market, and data plans started becoming standard, things like that. So once these SDKs hit the market, I figured I'd dust this project off and bring it back to life.
So your part is as the lead developer. How about you, Jason?
I've been playing with Android since late December after the SDK came out. I've worked on a couple of projects. The most well-known project I was involved with was TuneWiki, which was also an ADC winner. But Alex introduced me and Rylan. There are not many Android developers around here, so it seemed like a really good opportunity to work together, collaborate.
So what part of Android that you guys are really excited about, and also on the other hand, it's kind of giving you guys a big headache?
The thing I'm most excited about is the public's perception of Android. I mean, finally people are going to think of their phones as more than just something that lets them talk to their friends. From the very start, people are going to think of Android as an internet device, or a PC in their pocket, really. And so, I mean, that opens it up to a much wider audience than what's been typical with other smartphones.
Okay. So recently, I think Google announced Android market.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? How do you feel about Google taking control on distribution in some way?
I love it, actually.
You love it?
Oh yeah, it's having a central place where you go to find what you're looking for is going to make it way easier to target to the audience. I mean, without a model like that, people are going to have to poke around in different corners of the internet, and it's going to be a chore. So
I think that Google's marketplace is not mutually exclusive. I mean, T-Mobile will have their marketplace, and Sprint will have their marketplace, and so I think Google will be sort of the non-biased, we'll take anything marketplace, and then everyone else will be, if you follow my rules and if you follow my terms of service, I'll let you play.
So basically, the term of service of Google is pretty much open.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, iPhone, it's been a big buzz since it was launched. Why do you guys go with Android rather than iPhone?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is because when the Android SDK first came out, there was no iPhone SDK. So if you wanted to develop next generation cell phone apps, you went with Android. When did the iPhone SDK come out? 3-4 months after?
I think that's about right.
Yeah, I mean the Android platform being open really creates a lot of opportunities for us, where you can kind of decide what you want the phone to look like, and is it a phone or an internet device? Really, that line becomes blurred with the Android platform. With the iPhone platform, it's a really closed environment that's really neat. It's a phone, and it does really neat things, but it's a closed environment, and you have to play by Apple's rules. And Apple's rules say, right now you can't touch the camera. You can't. The SDK doesn't manipulate that, and there's all sorts of things that you can't necessarily do with the iPhone platform.
Yeah, TuneWiki had the same issues with that. Apple basically does not want people writing applications that are going to compete with their own applications. So certain parts of the API are locked down. You're not allowed to touch.
Right. And it's their right to do so. And I love the iPhone. I've got an iPhone. I've had one. Got one the first day.
Right.
So love the iPhone. And I think that, I mean, one of the things we talked about today, Rylan and I, which was the conversation about, the iPhone is actually slicker than the Google Android phone because it can be, right? It works really well together because it's designed for and by the device maker. Android has to work on any platform, so it can't necessarily be as tight. Maybe it will be eventually, but definitely not at the beginning.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Android is not the first mobile platform that were from based on Linux. Linux Mobile Demo was one of them. Aside from having the attachment of Google brand and also the SDK availability, why do you think developers give much more attention to Android compared to Limo?
I think that Google is pretty smart. I mean, the way they handled the Android Developer Challenge, I mean, they encourage like young, eager developers to play in a new platform in an open way, and I think the developers have seen the success of Google and are pretty confident that Google will stand behind this platform and that this platform will actually succeed. Whereas some of the other platforms, as you mentioned, who's standing behind those? I mean, they may be open and they may be public, but who's the cheerleader behind them, and how much commitment they have to make them work? Google has a real incentive to make this platform work because all of their applications really feed into this, right? Because this becomes an internet device versus a phone device.
Just a phone. Yeah. Well, like any other open source project, the vulnerability of someone forking Android platform and create a lot of distribution types, fragmentation in the market with this platform. How would you guys feel if there's 3 types of Android platform with different names, different APIs? Some are locked down and some are not. What do you think?
Fortunately, that's one of the advantages of having Google backing a project like this, is that the carriers, they have to play by certain rules, and Google has the weight to enforce them. So they're actually not allowed to fork Android beyond a certain level of incompatibility.
Okay.
The issue is, I mean, all these apps are going to be designed to an Android standard. So if a third party wants to fork and do a non-compatible version, they're only going to hurt themselves because all these apps aren't going to run. That's the beauty of Android, is you're going to get, if you're a handset maker, you can pre-install this already ready to go operating system, and you have all these apps that are just ready to go.
There's always somebody that forks an open source platform. It's just going to be. But in every case, like the WordPress platform for blogging, you probably use that for your environment. There's 3 or 4 other forks. Which one do you use?
Right.
The one where everybody develops for. So, if there becomes a fork for Android that's more better than Android, we'll all go there, and then that'll become the de facto standard. But I doubt it. It's probably going to be, like I said, Rylan and the guys. I mean, there's a bias, and you look at the age of the developers playing on the Android platform. There's a bias to Google is probably going to be the way to go. So, that credibility lends itself to, these developers are going to stick with Android. They're not probably going off on the fork.
So basically, Google have to get everybody happy in any way that they do.
I don't think they have to. I think there's going to be room for forks, and somebody can go do that, but it just won't work because they're not coming.
So do you think when the Android-based phone is out, will they be able to catch up to iPhone in 2-3 years?
Go ahead. What do you guys think?
Well, Android has some inherent disadvantages, being that they have to work on multiple devices. They kind of have to appeal to the lowest common denominator, whereas Apple controls everything, and so they can take advantage of certain things, do some cheats here and there. Android is going to be probably the closest competitor to the iPhone, but it's hard to become on par with them, as far as quality goes.
It's certainly possible for them to exceed iPhone on certain devices, because there's going to be devices coming out that are going to exceed the iPhones in capabilities. But Android will run on that, but not all devices will have those capabilities.
I look at it, if you're saying, how quickly will Android, equal or exceed the market in the United States, I think everything that's probably really accurate. But if you look at worldwide penetration, EU, China,
Right.
China, so Android will win and iPhone won't play.
Right.
Only rich people can have iPhone in China. Everyone can have an Android.
Right. So have you guys decided on which type of distribution system to distribute GoCart? Is it going through the Google Market channel or?
We're definitely going to put it on the marketplace eventually, but the details of pricing and all that is still very much in the air.
Okay. Okay. So, I kind of want to thank you all for sitting down with us and sharing some information. If you have 30 seconds to pitch GoCart, what would you say?
Hey, I would say GoCart is your shopping buddy. Right? Lets you, use your camera to take a snapshot of the barcode and find all the best prices online. Ultimately, it just makes you more informed.
All right. Okay, keep us in the loop, and we'll follow more stuff from you guys.
Great.
Thanks, Ed.